Trap it down. Trap it down. Trap it down. You gon' trap it down. Trap it down. You gon' trap it down.
I just appreciate everybody
watching. Watch him throw the ball. We gon' pick it off. You gon' let him hit the hole or you gon' cut it off. You gon' play through 4th and long or you gon' punt it off. Your defenders, heavy hitters, put your pads in. Don't be looking for the ref to throw no flags in. Keep the helmet on, keep the cleats tight. You the type to want to win by any means, right? You should look alive. This is Trap or Die.
Sir. Yes, sir. Come on, can we get this mic thing right? Boom, there we go. What's going on, man? Welcome back to another episode of the Trap or Die podcast, provided to you by 214 Media. You know who I am, man. I'm your host, Mual. Got AJ in the building. Dre is on the way. AJ, how you doing, man? How was your trip to the place that shall not go mentioned, man? I think you missed it. I think what was it? Oh, damn, I'm late. That was 2 weeks ago, wasn't it? Or you went out of town for a little bit?
Yeah, that was a Thursday.
That was Thursday. All right, so I wasn't sure. It was a little. See what happens when we miss a show? I feel like it's 2 weeks. How was? Nah. I know you was talking about dreading not going, even before that time, and you ultimately ended up going.
I mean, surprisingly, it was 70 degrees. It was a good event. So, I mean, I thought it was about to be cold as hell, but it ended up being 70.
Hold on, how you get 70 up there, bro, and we get 50 with a wind chill of like 30?
I think it was 70. I think it was 70 Thursday last week as well, and then crazy enough, 2 days later it was snowing.
Yeah, I ain't fucking.
So that's what I thought I was gonna get caught up. But
hell no, man. Hey, welcome back. Let's get the administrative item out of the way. If you're watching on YouTube, man, make sure that like button, make sure that subscribe button is definitely appreciated. If you are on Twitch side, Jaren, I see you. Rhino, I think I said your name right. Ray and Ho.
Ray and that hoe.
No bull, right? Hey, either way, if you're on that Twitch side, man, make sure that follow button. We appreciate it. If you are on Periscope, Twitter, all that good stuff, man, we do have the show on that side, but we can't see comments on that side. So always welcome to watch the show over there. But if you always want to be a part of the show, try to migrate over to the YouTube side so we can have you a part of the show. Is definitely appreciated, but not forced or anything like that. Everybody, I see y'all in the chat. JB, C Money, Jarian, Rahino, Jarian, like I said, Magic Man. Hey, look at him. What's going on with you, player? He said, hey, look, I don't know, man. I guess it did help him, bro. Gave him a little boost before they went up to that to the link and got that dub, man. But y'all know why we're here, man. We didn't do the post game. We wasn't with the midnight crew. We wasn't on that wave Monday night, man. But we here today, 32-21, man. Big upset dub for the Washington Commanders against the Philadelphia Eagles. It wasn't something that I anticipated. It wasn't something that Dre anticipated. It wasn't something that we know AJ anticipated, because we have AJ on record saying that they're going to lose every game on the schedule, which is fine because I have not picked them to win in a very long time. So I'm not judging AJ. But all three of us had them losing against the Philadelphia.
Hey, it sounds like you judging.
I'm sneak dissing a little bit, but I ain't really sneak dissing. It's like, no, let me stop though. It was a crazy game in a way that, and I'm about to get a floor to you, AJ. It was a crazy game in a way that, like, and I've been saying this like repeatedly. This is the way they won the game. It's like, how we always say, what does it take? What does it take for Washington to win? And we give our points. Whatever their game plan was heading into their game, whatever their detailed game plan was heading into the game, from a coach's standpoint, from a position standpoint, from an execution standpoint, understanding what they have to do, it felt like they executed that plus some. Like, of course, luck got in the way for some things defensively, right? And that's perfectly fine. And even on the offensive side of the football, but the way they executed from start to finish, it's like that game plan was evident from the jump. But for them to execute it and then not abandon the game plan throughout the entire game was something that I would have never seen coming. AJ, I'm gonna get the floor to you. What are your thoughts on your opening thoughts on the game? And then you can take it wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think yesterday, the defense did a good job of utilizing, some of their players, especially Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne. I think that Ben St. Jude's did a good job of slowing down A.J. Brown. Even though he got a little hurt earlier in the game, they weren't able to ever get into a rhythm offensively, Eagles. I think the key thing that we've kind of been preaching from the defense is creating turnovers. When you create turnovers, you put your team in a better position offensively, and also for yourself to, get more utilization out of everything else that you want to do. They weren't really running the ball. I don't want to say like they were really pounding the ball. They were having attempts. I mean, the offensive line wasn't really moving anybody, but at the end of the day, it worked because it kept the Eagles' offense off of the field.
To add to that, just because we're on that part, I agree with you. Like the offensive line, and Aikman said it a lot, and this has always just been the case throughout this entire season, AJ. Like the offensive line, they have their moments where they're able to get pushed, but for the most part, like they're not getting a lot of push off of the ball. Like they're more so in a stalemate situation with defensive linemen, and they rely, or the running backs are required to do a little bit more work than you really would want them to do. Or I mean, it's their job, right? But to your point, they're not really getting that much push. However, I will say, to add on to it, I think the ability to not abandon it, like understanding that these runs are going to get you in reasonable third and shorts, is what really helped and back the idea that we can stay with the ground game. We don't have to stray away from it.
Yeah, I mean, and what's interesting is this probably should have been the formula all season, and mixing in the pass game. I mean, some people want to rave about how Carson Wentz was his statistics with the Colts last year. They want to talk about that, but a huge reason why his statistics looked like that was because the Colts focused on the run and he played off of play action. Instead, here they try to turn him into Patrick Mahomes low key, when really you just need to get a couple yards. It doesn't need to be a running back averaging 4 or 5 yards per carry. You just need to get 2, 3, minimize as many opportunities as third and long. Like, you want to be in third and short, and that way you have the disposable, the playbook to you. Because as you seen last night, whenever the offense was in third and longs, you got stupid ass play calls. You got a halfback screen with a high pass by Taylor Heineke. Then you get right after that, you get a tight end screen. Like, there's no creativity when it's third and long for Scott Turner. One, because he doesn't trust himself. He also doesn't trust Taylor Heineke. But I mean, it worked. It worked primarily because they were able to create the time of possession in their favor, and then they also utilize and capitalize off of created turnovers. Two turnovers created by Derek Forrest, where you got the fumble recovery, the interception. Of course, at the end, you got the touchdown by Toonhill, but you also have that play with Jamin Davis and another guy where they were able to recover the ball. Those put them in short field positions, and
Ridgeway.
Ridgeway, but it put them in short field positions and also created that imbalance in the turnovers that they had with Taylor Heineke getting the strip sack, fumble, and also interceptions that he threw.
Yeah, and to your point, Anthony, I see you. We're going to circle back to this one, Anthony, because that is, I think, is a valid conversation. We have a topic coming up, right? I think that's a valid conversation, so we're going to circle back to that one. To your point with this offense, I think, like, how do I even kind of quantify it? There was, like, the way that they executed, it had to, like, this offense for Philadelphia, just put it this way, is clearly potent. Like, it's undoubtedly potent. They scored 14 points on their first 2 possessions. And then minus the turnovers, but you can't like literally take away turnovers. So please don't get that confused, everybody that's listening. But minus the turnovers, if you see how they're moving the ball when they have those opportunities, you see like these explosive plays like here and there, like you see how quickly they can move down the field. And again, you can't say minus the turnovers in a literal sense, right? But you just saw like if they were able to play a clean game, how it was going to be difficult for Washington to muddy the game up. So for what I'm getting at and how the offense was able to help the defense out, and vice versa, right? Defense was able to force some turnovers. They forced 3 turnovers. The 4th one was at the end of the game, but they forced 3 turnovers in the game. Special teams had huge plays. Everybody was able to keep this ship together in one night. And Jerry, and I think you mentioned it right here. It said that it's not sustainable. To your point, AJ, and how this offense played, and to be honest with you, I don't even know if it was just truly I don't trust Taylor. I do think that was a part, right? That was a percentage. I'm not taking away from that, but I also think that this offensive line was something where you don't want to keep putting them back in pass protection, because eventually you'll see some pressures get on Taylor Heinicke that he really can't get out of. And what Taylor, I think, was sacked 3 times, I believe. I think 3 times on the day. But ultimately, to the point, they had to play a perfect game to win this by 5 points. I'm not counting the last score, but you had to play a perfect game to win this by 5 points, and that's hard to do every single week. You don't take away from wins, but you also got to acknowledge like this level of ball control, time of possession. Like they had 4 10+ play drives. And then like you can't keep getting away with that and having points on that and having like clean drives all game long. Like that is very hard to do. And they came through in one of the biggest moments of the season when they really needed it against a team that was really just flat out favored by 11+ points. It was just a really perfect game from a standpoint of executing and hoping that Philadelphia doesn't have as many opportunities to take over this game.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if maybe that was the plan going in. It just seemed as though like it worked. So hey, I guess it's.
What you think the plan was, or if you had to make a guess, what did you think they wanted to do?
I think they wanted to do more rollouts like bootlegs and play action, and run a little bit less than that. And the reason why I say that, like the scripted plays when they first got the ball, after that penalty on the return, it was just like it was kind of funny. Like the first drive scripted was just like, what the fuck are they doing tonight? Like, what do they plan on doing? Because you already know that they have an elite pass rushing front line, and you put your quarterback in that position to get that strip sack from Josh Sweat. So after that moment happened, it seems like they said, scrap what we plan to do. Now we're going to go in heavy tight end sets. We're going to use Bates. We're going to use Rodgers and Thomas and try to just run the ball. We probably won't get a whole bunch of yards, but we'll try something.
I can see that. I think probably what shook them was that 3rd down sack. That strip sack at that. Who was it at? Charles Leno, like your best offensive lineman got beat pretty bad within the first 3 plays of the game. And I could see like a particular series scaring a coordinator. Who knows? Or maybe they just got to the ground game quicker. I don't know. I think there's a couple things to be said, like even outside of as we transition out of the actual game plan part. I think the resiliency is also something too. Like that wasn't for on both sides of the football. That wasn't like Philadelphia, it's a hostile environment. Like it's a hostile environment no matter how you slice it. And I think to Anthony, where is Anthony at? Hold on 1 second. Where are we at? Ron's teams don't quit on them. I know you're talking about from a season standpoint, but I think this game altogether encapsulates something that we didn't really anticipate heading into the game. Like nobody talked about this, and I think it has something to do with the fact that like from a edge standpoint, and understand, just hear me out, everybody. From an edge standpoint, when people play for their coaches, obviously, especially when something traumatic happens, they have their back. They love their coaches, especially if they really ride for your coach. And Ron Rivera lost his mother, I think a week like before the Vikings game. I want to say I think it was before the Vikings game. And at this point, I don't think he really ever had time to grieve. Even like you can tell, like after his situation with his mom, he came right back and he was at practice either the same day or the next day, and he just kept pushing. And I don't even think this week, when you win in Philly, that you still had that time to yourself to really grieve properly, or however which way you want to. But my point in bringing this up, Anthony, and everybody in the chat, and you, AJ, that post game speech with Terry, taking over after Ron talked, just also reminded me that they were playing on the field for themselves, but also from a coaching standpoint. Like JD McKissick said it, like he loved Ron Rivera. Like he got the utmost respect for that man. Like there are people who truly respect Ron Rivera, and I think it's hard to really put that to the side when you see how people interact when things are going well with this team and when they lose. Like they have the same messaging as Ron Rivera. I'm not saying I agree with everything, but like you just see how this team is molded by Ron, and when good things happen, they're happy, but they also are very happy for Ron. And then when bad things happen, they still stick to the script regardless of whatever else is going on. And that's something that I noticed, and it took me to see what happened in the post game to really see like how they battled against Philadelphia was a lot more to do than just a football game.
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, condolences to the Rivera family.
Yeah.
Especially with him losing his mother, me losing my mom in August of last year. I know how much of a toll that can take on the individual. I deal with those repercussions every day. All day, but I kind of hate when people say that like players are playing hard for this coach, or even when they speak of like playing hard for Ron. These guys are playing hard for themselves and their families, and then being the only game on TV Monday night, you got to play hard because everybody's watching. Everyone that's a football lover is watching those games. So you need to perform at your highest ability. Not saying that maybe it wasn't a motivation to help him out and get a win, but at the same token, you're definitely playing for yourself, the rest of the league watching, because you might be coming up on a contract, a free agent, whatever the case is. There's a lot of guys on this team and this roster that don't have comfortable situations financially to just sit back and relax and just be like, oh, even if we lose or I don't put on a good performance, like I'll make it to another day. I mean, as you could tell with the NFL, things change very quickly. The Packers drafted a wide receiver, third round last year, in Amani Rodgers.
Third and second, I think.
Yeah, due to his fumbles, he got released today. Only having 1 year in, and that's a team that needs wide receivers. But I mean, overall, I think that they did a good job of, sticking to their defensive scheme and creating those turnovers. Creating turnovers is huge for this team. If they can do that, they can be more successful going down the line. I don't have the statistics in front of me. I wish we had like an ESPN researcher, but I'm curious to know when this team has more than 2 turnovers per game under this tenureship, what's their win and loss record.
I could do that while I'm talking. I think to what you're saying with the coaching thing, I think you brought up some very valid points, because they all have their own personal reasons for why a win is important for them, or why a good performance is important for them. I do think though, and the reason why I still am on the side that they were playing for more than just it was more than just a game for this night, was that like we can't on the outside quantify what they know. Like, and my point of bringing up that post game is because clearly he was still going through something. But if he was going through something, the players knew it, and the players understood that. So and that was one angle where it's like you don't really understand if you're not in the locker room. And I gotta give leeway to the other things that they have said over time before, and that's why I brought up JD McKissick before Ron Rivera's mother became, a focal point in the news. Like these things are somewhat of a conversation in that we can't quantify like how much they truly, respect their coach. And this is more so like beyond a Ron Rivera thing, right? It's more so about like just how sometimes we just don't see the behind the scenes or the extra things that they're going through, and I think that's also something that when you see a game on Monday night, which is the only game, it could have been a 4:00 game or a 1:00 game, and I think if they won, I would be saying the same thing tonight or post game after the fact, and that's kind of my angle on this thing. Let's go ahead and bring Dre in here first. Catch up on the comments right quick. Coach, Hawk, what's going on, Hawk? He said Coach Mual and a dulatory job. AJ on Trap or Die. What's going on? Yak said, so AJ, you're saying Turner got scared of how inept his quarterback was and finally started to play smash mouth football. That is terrible. Benz, that was Scott Turner's best game plan of the year. We found it out. Now, I do want to talk about this part, that second sentence. Because other people talked about that. We're going to bring Dre on right quick and then talk about this identity thing, because I think that's an important topic moving forward. And that's something that we really have to identify. Hawk said, Mual, I told you it was a cold red game. Scotty T called that game like his job depending on it. We know Turner's pass happy.
Man, we give it. I seen a lot of people after the game giving Scott Turner way too much credit.
All right, let's go ahead and bring Dre in here and we can continue the conversation, because that identity thing, I want to talk about that. So let's go ahead and bring Dre in this thing right quick. There you go. Boom. I ain't changed the background yet. What's going on, Dre? How you feeling, player?
What's good, man? Shit, long day, man. Shoot, I'm just happy to be here. Victory Tuesday. I especially wanted to be here to see what the hell AJ talking about tonight, man.
Hey, man, AJ been on point, bro. AJ been on point, man.
I just heard him say some bullshit.
I about to say he ain't say the wild shit yet, but you just hopped in. You just hopped in the show, Dre. So I think it's time. I think it's time to get messy.
You need me to pull it out of him, okay?
Yeah, so let's talk right quick, man. I want to get your thoughts on everything. And then we'll circle back to the Scott Turner conversation. But I want to get your thoughts. Yes, Jarian, Scott, and Taylor. But Dre, I want to get your thoughts on everything that you saw Monday night. And you can take it wherever you want to go, and we'll circle back.
Yeah, last night was, one of the best, probably the best coach game in the Ron Rivera era. That's just from, all sides. His whole coaching staff, I'm not going to, praise what's his name, Scott Turner, too much, because Scott Turner did some shit that I've been wanting him to do for pretty much all season with the personnel he has. Is you have to go power run. Like, you can't throw the ball 40 times a game. So I'm not going to praise Scott too much and act like he did a great job because he did something that he should have been doing a while ago. But at the same time, I will say the coaching staff as a whole had a good game because the players were prepared. And it's just really good to watch football like that. It keeps you engaged. Like, this wasn't one of those games where they came out slow or embarrassing in the first half. Like, they came out ready for the Eagles from minute one in this game. And they like I said last night on Twitter, the Eagles defense did not want to play that type of game last night. Like, they had no interest in playing a 1980 smash mouth football game. The Eagles wanted to go out there and tee off on Taylor Heineke the way they did Carson Wentz. But like I said, the Washington came out prepared. Even defensively, it looked like the Eagles didn't want to run the ball at all in the first half. They was just trying to test the corners. They wanted to pass the ball all day, and they got some, a couple of scores early on, but then after that, it was like the defense settled down. They locked in, and guys like Ben St. Juste, I know the fan base is kind of hard on him, but Ben St. Juste, man, he plays good to me. I like Ben St. Juste's game. Like, even those pass interference calls, I know he has a reputation now, but But Ben St. Juste just seems like he's always in position. And I just think he has to learn how to use his length a little bit better and maybe turn his head around. But I think he's turning into a really solid corner. I mean, that's really been one of the things that's been changing around this defense is that solid corner play. It's one of the things that was hurting us last year and this year early on when you had William Jackson out there. He was struggling mightily. I mean, big time, the last couple of seasons. You put Ben St. Juste in there. St. Juste, once you see him playing starter minutes, the whole defense started turning around. Jamin Davis is getting better. He's getting better weekly, and it's good to see the development of these young guys. The defensive line, what can you say about those guys? I mean, they are playing lights out. Maybe it was Sam Mills. Maybe Sam Mills was the problem, but I mean, whatever the case may be, you got to give the defensive line some credit because those guys are playing good football. I mean, offensively, though, like I said, they played the game with the personnel they had. Like, you have to run Gibson, you have to give it to Brian Robinson, and they got the ball to the playmaker Terry. Terry did his thing, and I mean they had a game plan again that the Eagles did not want to face last night, and that's how they got the victory.
So the Scott Turner situation, Dre, and AJ, let's go ahead. Where is the comment at? Identity. What is the code going, bro? Identity. I think my issue with not with Ben's, right, is not nothing with Ben's and Damian, checked in before as well. We talked about it on Hogs Haven side. He mentioned an identity. I think my thing is Scott Turner has had the same amount of games coached here in Washington that Ron Rivera has played, and Scott Turner has a more hands-on approach with the offense. He's never been able to establish an identity. I think he's always had these standalone games. And I think for us knowing that it will be important for him to establish the ground game, AJ mentioned it before you got on, Dre. This should have been not 49 attempts. Like that is an absurd number that you probably won't ever reach again. But establishing a balanced attack or run heavy or run focused attacks like 55-45 run pass or 60-40 run pass, something like that. That should have always been the approach for Scott Turner. And yet he gets all googly eyed because of the weapons that Washington has. But you can also be just as effective if you utilize these guys in certain situations and certain points of the game, if you still run the ball and also establish a balanced approach, you can still get them their effective touches and make them an effective force on the field, even with you being able to establish a ground game and control the line of scrimmage in that manner. So I don't think, to wrap up, I don't think he has an identity. I think we've always known what should be with this offense. I think he just executed everything to a T, and it's something that we've seen before in spurts. You got to show me more.
Yeah, there's never been an offensive identity, and that's what I'm saying. Like, you could tell that the game plan in the first scripted plays of that first drive was not what it was supposed to be for the rest of the night. Like, Eagles weren't even prepared for that. You feel me? Like, if they felt like they was gonna run the ball that much, they would have stacked the box, and they weren't really getting the offensive line wasn't really getting pushed. But that's my issue with Scott Turner. I don't know what the fuck his offense is. I have no damn clue. Like, I was getting irritated seeing, Curtis Samuel be part of the cardio workout team last night because he had him just running back and forth with these jet sweeps and not giving him the damn ball or any guy the damn ball on the jet sweeps until later on in the game, like so late. And then when they did do it was the 4th down and 1 attempt, and they ended up having to delay a game, which is stupid as well, because that means someone in here wrote Taylor Heineke has high football IQ. I beg to differ because he should have called the timeout. Ron Rivera should have called the timeout, things of that nature. But yeah, this team don't have no identity as far as offensively. You never know what you're gonna get. Like, I just know what they're going to do in most plays just based on the personnel. You see Cam Sims and Dax in the game, you already know it's a run play.
Like, fuck all that. AJ, is the defense balling or not? Are they playing football now?
Is the defense balling?
We've been asking, me and Maul been asking AJ this shit for 3 weeks. What AJ been saying? Nah, they ain't good. They ain't balling.
The defense is playing better. I feel like there were some plays out there that Philly could have made. Some plays that they did make, like for example, the Watkins pass. Like, that's just great hustle by Ben. Making a play. They created turnovers. I mean, that's the main thing you want. Like, I don't even care if you could be last in the league in all statistics as far as the rush and the pass. Just create turnovers, because when you create turnovers, you help your team get in a better position to win games. You seen that last night. Without those turnovers last night, they don't win this game.
Yeah, I agree. Dre, what's your thoughts? And I want to get specifically to Taylor after this. And we got to talk that P word. But what is going on with, like AJ just mentioned it, 4 turnovers.
The P word?
The word you don't think can happen.
Yeah.
I don't even think we was going to talk about that. It's the furthest thing from my mind.
It's a legit possibility.
Hey man, you know what I'm saying? The group chat is for other people. Where am I at? All right, so look, Dre, this offense and just for the Phillies offense, 4 turnovers on the night. And Washington essentially, let me take that back. 3 turnovers on the night, and offense or Washington really just won by 5 points minus the last turnover that led to a touchdown. This seemed like it had to be a perfect game on both sides of the football for Washington to really win this. Now, the good thing is you don't play Philly again. Like, you split. Like, it is what it is. You ain't got no other Philly on your schedule. This is one of the best teams in the league. But how sustainable is what Washington did Monday night? How sustainable is that? Whether it's from the defensive side of the football being able to be opportunistic, or just the offense being able to, like, that week in and week out. All right, we know where we're at. We know we're not that talented up front, but we do have some playmakers. Let's try to establish this ground game and see where it takes us.
Yeah, offensively, then that's the part that I'm not sure that's sustainable because of how they win or how they did beat Philly. And this is usually how their games go. And we talked about this last year as well with the offense, is that they seem to find most of their success on long drives where they end up scoring at the end of a drive. I mean, but that's the key to how this team has to have success. But the problem is this team usually isn't disciplined enough to sustain long drives. Like, the penalties usually happen. But last night, I think there was a stat or something that said that Washington didn't have a penalty for maybe a whole first half. I mean, they were playing really disciplined football, which isn't usually the case. That's why I'm not sure it's sustainable, because to sustain the way they want to play, the way they want to win with the ball control, power run, they have to be pretty much penalty free, because this offense they can't really make up yards. Like, when they're in situations like 2nd and 13 or 3rd and 10, that's when this offense is dead. You might as well just go ahead and punt the ball on 3rd down in those situations. But this offense wins when they get good yardage on first downs, the good chunk yardage. You get 4, 5 yards on first down. You're in 2nd and 5, and then you have like 2 plays to get a first down and 5 yards. And they were doing that a lot last night. But again, I mean, they have to play mistake-free football on that side of the field going forward if that's the way they want to win. And I'm not sure they can do that over a long period of time, which is why you see in the games like Minnesota or the Colts where they're struggling to score, because they can't stay disciplined for a whole game. They can't sustain those long drives for a whole game. But Philly, they just had the perfect storm last night on offense. Defensively, I have more confidence on that side of the football, because we've seen them now for about 5-6 straight weeks, pretty much hold their own and give the offense a chance. But this game was just complete domination, in the sense that the offense was playing mistake-free football for the most part, and they kept the defense off the field. Like, they kept the Eagles' biggest weapons off of the field. Like, Jalen Hurts, he was sitting on the sideline watching the game like we were most of the game. and that's the key to how they beat Philadelphia. Like I said, it was a perfect storm, and I think the perfect storm happened on one end. I didn't necessarily think the defense did too much different, because we saw it against the Eagles. We kind of talked about this in the last show, where they held the Eagles to scoring in one quarter. Like, the Eagles literally scored in one quarter the whole game. And this week, They scored 14 in the first half and 7 points in the second half. So you got to give the defense some credit, but the offense helped them out tremendously, keeping them off the field a lot of the game.
Now, Taylor, he survived this week. I think there was a lot of pressure on him to have a bounce back game. I never said that he had to win this one, but I did say he had to look competent, or he had to look serviceable. Like, you couldn't have another poor performance. I think that was actually the threshold. I said you can't have another poor performance. How long has Taylor's leash been extended? I think I came across a stat that'll probably not be too good for a lot of people that are fans of Taylor, but we'll figure this out. So in the 4 games that he started, he's had, let me go ahead and read it because I'm not about to show this whole thing. And he's been 3-1 in his starts, right? And in those wins, he's completed 60% of those passes, 202 yards per game, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, 5 big time throws, and 9 turnover worthy plays. So big time throws and 9 turnover worthy plays are more so an indication that this is from Pro Football Focus.
Didn't most of those come in the first start? Those turnover worthy. I think he had like 5 1/2 in that first start he had.
Nah, the second game he had. So let me show it actually, because it'll actually be better because you can see from a game by game standpoint how interesting these numbers were. Let me go ahead and move this. This is for everybody right here. So this is everything right here. There's 4 games he went 3-1. And you had in those wins is the numbers that I highlighted right here. But these are the numbers from all 4, meaning the 3 wins and the loss. So five, he had 1 in the second start where he had 5 turnover worthy plays. He has a total of 9 in that 4 game stretch, and not that many big time throws. So, but to the point, he performed decent enough against Philadelphia. How long has that leash been extended? Or is this like a game by game basis where they're just waiting for Taylor to fuck up and be like, you know what, Carson, it's your time?
Yeah, honestly, that's where I think I'm at. I think we're at game by game basis with Taylor. I don't think Ron is going to bench him this week. Just hearing Ron's presser earlier, where Ron mentioned this is about the team right now, and just read between the lines how the team is responding to Taylor. They're 3-1 in his starts. They're going to keep it going right now, and I think Taylor has to falter these next couple of weeks to even remotely think about going back to Carson Wentz. But here's the thing: the schedule is lightening it up now. You got the Texans, you got the Falcons. The Giants, of course, is going to be a tough game, division battle. Because that's
only a 3-point dog, Dre. For us.
Well, we'll never be a big favorite for a while. I don't anticipate us.
Very valid.
Very rarely do you ever see us anywhere in the 5 to 6 point, favorite range. So that's not really shocking to see Houston as a 3-point dog. And we also got to remember too, it's on the road, and road or home teams usually get a little bit of points thrown their way by.
We're 5-5. I don't even know why I even over exaggerated or overthought it. We're 5-5. It's not like we're 7-3.
Yeah. But with the schedule lightening up, you have Taylor in a situation where they can win these games. I mean, Texans, they can beat the Texans, they can beat the Falcons. Giants game is going to be a toss-up. I mean, I think that's going to be a tough divisional battle. I don't think the Giants are as good as their record indicates, but it's going to be a toss-up. But with that said, is that there's a really good chance that Taylor may just keep playing like Taylor, where he's not playing great or anything, but he's just doing just enough or just his part in these wins where they keep on winning. But the schedule is so light right now that they can win these next games, and you may not see Carson for the rest of the season, because if they do win these games, let's say Taylor starts playing bad around the last Giants game, or he starts really messing up, they may go to Sam Howell at that point or something. I mean, but then again, or they could go to Carson. But right now, I do think it is a game-by-game situation. And right now, I don't think Carson's getting the job back anytime soon, just because the team's playing well and they got a light schedule coming up.
AJ, how long do you think Taylor's leash been extended to? Is this a game-by-game basis for you as well, or do you think he has like a longer leash than that? If you're talking to you on mute too.
Oh, say that again. I couldn't really hear you.
Now I was saying, same question for Dre. Like, where do you think the the leash is now for Taylor? Is this like a game by game basis still, or is this more of a he has a few more games ahead of him before they decide to pull him if something goes wrong?
I mean, I think they're in a peculiar situation. I think Ron probably wants to play Carson Wentz because hold on real quick.
Hey, y'all getting a little too rowdy out there. Y'all getting too rowdy. Calm that shit down. You back on mute.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, my bad.
You good,
but yeah, I think it's because at the end of the day, I think Ron wants to play Carson Wentz, but the issue at hand is Taylor Heineke has the locker room. That relationship, that rapport, like they feel comfortable with him. He's one of them. Like even though he's some shit, he's still one of them. Unfortunately, I think that also speaks volume about this personnel on this team. I think if they even just get a quarterback that's average, that can relate with the rest of the people within the locker room, it will change the dynamic of a lot of things. Just look at Philly. Jalen Hurts is not the best quarterback, but he's relatable within that locker room. He's able to unite people. He's a leader. I'm not going to sit here and say Taylor Heineke is a leader, but he's able to.
You can say that.
He's able to bring both sides of the ball together, and it's pretty hard in football to do because every group has their own like meetings throughout the week, like they typically say within their position groups. But as you can see, not only does the offense rally behind Taylor Heineke from the wide receiver corps of running backs, but the defensive guys rock with him super hard, like the Chase Youngs, the Montez Sweats, the Jonathan Allen, the different guys on the defense. And that's where Ron is in a hard place because, like I said, they're pretty much the same damn quarterback. It's just that one has a better arm. He has more arm strength, but they both make piss poor ass decisions during games. They're both a liability within the pocket. Taylor can move better than Carson Wentz right now in this point in his career, but he doesn't even do that. He doesn't step up in the pocket. They're the same damn quarterback. It's just that one smokes hookah and the other one reads the Bible on a regular basis, like his Instagram. And that's the disconnect. I've said this in the beginning. Y'all laugh when I was like, yeah, Taylor be in Rose Bar with them, smoking hookah, but they fuck with that. Like, this is a young ass team. Like, they don't rock with Carson as the person. Like, yeah, he can make some plays, and he made some plays earlier in the season. But Taylor Heineke, even with the bullshit, they still like, yo, we fuck with him overall. Like, I mean, that interception down the sideline to Terry is a badass interception. The pass where even on the outside, Curtis Samuel, that's a touchdown. That's 6. The strip sack, all you got to do is step up. Like, I mean, even though he's ass, they still rock with him. And, you can't disrupt that within the locker room because you bring in Carson Wentz, the whole energy changes for everything offensively. And not saying like they're doing the best offensively, but at the end of the day, Ron has to listen to his players. His players want Taylor to lead them the rest of the way. If they're going to lose, they rather lose with Taylor than Carson Wentz, which speaks volumes and also lets you know that Ron and this personnel staff do not understand their team at all, what they have.
Well, that leads me to something I wanted to ask both of you all, because I actually had this conversation last night with a couple of people on Twitter. And the conversation was, how do you feel about the overall roster construction of the team now that you can step back and you can look at this team performing, and we can clearly see that, hey, we know what this team needs, but we're also looking, and I can honestly sit back and say, I don't think this roster personnel and construction is as bad as a lot of people had kind of made it out to be. Like, a lot of the players are starting to develop, and there's some positions that's starting to be starting to show up for this team.
Well, I still think it's bad. I'll let Molly Mual get on here, but I still think it's bad. I think that it's just signs of hope and optimism that if you put the right quarterback in this situation with the right offensive coordinator, because that's huge. Scott Turner is still a huge problem. But if you put even an average quarterback within this weaponry and someone that can be creative and innovative with the offense, you can put up points at a high pace. I mean, look at the Bears. The Bears have nobody offensively, really. Like, Claypool is not a top wide receiver in this league to me. Mooney is okay. He's probably a number 2, number 3. But Justin Fields is out there. He's able to really, truly be himself at this point. They've learned to let him play ball. You feel me? Justin Fields wasn't even playing like this in Ohio State as far as like in the run game and things of that nature. He was throwing the ball, but he's getting the ability to make plays and be creative. And if they could just get a quarterback that allows them to do that, and with the right offensive coordinator and this defense, you could pop, and it can create turnovers on a regular basis. You could change a lot of things, and it makes them look better personnel wise. But there's still some glaring holes that should be fixed.
Yeah, they're not a perfect team, but I mean, they have pieces to where you could say, yeah, you get a quarterback, maybe an offensive lineman or 2. This team's on the right path. I mean, you can win with this defense. You just got to add the right pieces at certain spots right now.
I think there's so I don't know if I've ever formally like said this. I'm sure I have, and I just don't remember it. But I've never really had like a huge issue with like how they were able to accumulate talent through the draft. It was on the pro side that I thought that they sucked terribly. That's through free agents, or that's through replacement or retention. Like, they suck all together in all phases of pro side player development or pro side roster management. I've always thought that's been the case. So if I've never distinguished the two, I thought they've been okay in terms of drafting. I actually thought they've been good in terms of drafting, but never really good on the personnel side of the pros. And to your question, Dre, like, is there like an somewhat of an over or a overrated or underrated approach to this roster? I think that it's still fairly accurate to assume what we've assumed over the past few weeks. Like, they still got into a poor position with their offensive lineman because Ron Rivera screwed up in the offseason. The linebackers, I think, have been developing, but to what degree? I like Jamin Davis, but to what degree in which you can say that he's like a solid or like a good starter and ultimately a playmaker, that's still to be determined. The answer isn't there yet. You have a very thin secondary, specifically at cornerback. William Jackson was a bust. I seen somebody mention that in here. I think it was Jarian. William Jackson was a bust. You lost on that. I do like what they're doing with Bobby McCain now. I think it's like one of the bigger issues that they had, and when I talk about secondary, it's cornerback. Rashad Wild Goose, slot man, struggling to their satisfaction. Danny Johnson, I saw the game that he had against Minnesota. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't that good in the slot. And he's probably still getting some burn out there, but for the most part, the reason why I bring up Bobby McCain is because they're sliding him down the slot, and they're giving him looks at cornerback. And they're having Derek Forrest up top, or Bobby McCain and Derek Forrest as a too high. And you have Cam Curl in the box, and sometimes you have Bobby McCain in slot or natural slot and stuff like that. So, like, they're finding ways to work with what they have, but they're having to work with what they have because they put themselves in bad spots in the offseason. Now, again, I'm cool with a 3 safety look to kind of help that secondary and that position flex or position versatility that Ron talks about. I understand it to some degree, but eventually, like, you're going to have to, answer for, the holes that you've created and the one that you've never solved, which is quarterback. And that's kind of to AJ's point. And Dre, I think you understand that too, in terms of quarterback spot. Like, if you never get that position solved, you have no chance.
Well, this is what you are if you don't have the position solved. You are a 500 or a middling team, for the most part, when you don't have that quarterback. Or for the most part, a lot of these teams, and you see it throughout the NFL, a lot of these teams stuck in the same kind of record or the same kind of purgatory that Washington is in is because they haven't found that, legit answer at that spot. Like usually the teams that are at the cream of the crop, the top of the top, those are the guys with the Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the legitimate answers at quarterback. And we see in Miami's actually finding their legitimate answer at quarterback with Tua. But for Washington, that's why I was asking about the roster construction in the sense of that when AJ he answered the question and kind of proved the point that I was kind of trying to make, that even if you just get an average quarterback, things change around here. And that kind of speaks to the roster that you already have here. Like you can't put an average quarterback here with a bad roster and they just come out, firing all cylinders, they're winning, whatever the case may be. But an average quarterback with this roster here, you probably talking about maybe 2 to 3 more games. And that's important when you're talking about a team who's probably going to be in the 7 and 9 range of wins. If you can add an average quarterback, you're talking about this team's possibly an 11-team winner, or so to speak. So that's kind of the point I was making with the roster. And do we think that this roster is a little bit better? Like we get the quarterback. Like you're right. You're absolutely right. We don't have that piece right now. And I actually kind of thought about it because it was something I thought about where Ron mentioned, and Ron had talked about this in the offseason. He kept saying we're a quarterback away. And he thought he had his quarterback. He thought he had his quarterback of Carson, but we can kind of see now you still don't have that piece. You still don't have that guy at that position yet. That's why we are kind of like this team that's still meddling. We're this team that has to celebrate these big wins over the Eagles, like these improbable wins, because that's the purgatory we're in right now with the quarterback position. But I do think there's pieces on this roster that if you do get a quarterback, you do find that guy somehow, that this roster can do some damage. They can actually do something in this league.
Yeah, I mean, and I just wanted to jump in real quick. Like, just look around the league. Like, it's important to have the right pairing of a quarterback and offensive coordinator. Like, Kirk Cousins is looking better because it seems like there's a connection there. There's a rapport. I mean, Tua looks so much better with McDaniels. Like, Josh Allen still looks good with Ken Dorsey. Mahomes, he has this rapport with Eric Bieniemy and Andy Reid. Even Jalen Hurts with his quarterback coach and Brian Johnson, and trying to remember who's the offensive coordinator over there. I want to say it's like Shane Sheehan or something like that. But those things matter so much, and I feel like Ron, if he does end up staying here for another year, he has to wake up and realize, like, I have to bring in an innovative play caller in here. I can't keep trying to do this with Scott Turner. And like I said, you could get a average athletic quarterback, though, like a dual threat quarterback. And you can do a lot of things with the weapons that you have offensively. I mean, I personally think that maybe they could start somebody else at tight end instead of Logan Thomas. They give them more flexibility in the passing game. So weird that they still don't really use Amani Rodgers in the passing game. Instead, they're using him to block. It's like, come on, bro. But, if they could just fix a couple things with that pairing, I think the offense has the ability to make moves.
So let's close out with this. Quick question for you, Dre, because I forgot my man Hawk was in this thing. Quick question for you, Dre, and then we'll get out of here with that P word. Sweat and pain. What's your thoughts for Hawk? What do you think about this extension stuff?
And I kind of talked about this before, but before the season, if you asked me this question as far as who would get the extension, I would have picked Montez Sweat because I think the edge is just the more valuable position. But Daron Payne just having such a hell of a season, and he's really solidified himself in the interior line to the point where that's a guy I keep. That's a guy I don't want to get rid of, especially with the way this defense is like shaping up, and you see his impact on the defense. And that's not to say that Sweat, isn't what he's supposed to be, or he's not a freak athlete, whatever the case may be. But the number still doesn't show up for Sweat. Like Sweat, he'll have his games. Like he had a couple of games this season where he just went off. It was like 2-3 games in a row. Even with the sacks, he may not have been getting to the quarterback, but you were seeing him get there. But then you'll just not hear his name, you just may not see him making the impact. He may be doing his job and maybe doing the assignments he's tasked to do, but you don't necessarily feel his impact throughout the game the same way that you kind of feel a Daron Payne's impact throughout the game in the interior of the line. And this also would be a different question if you didn't have Chase Young. And this is why, a lot of the fans that talk about Chase Young, when they talk about Chase Young coming back, they say we have to sit Chase Young down. Now, Chase, if he's healthy, he has to play. Now, not necessarily so much for the team rushing him back, but more so Chase has to start proving something. Chase has to start putting something on tape. And it would be beneficial if the team can look at Chase and finally make the determination to say, if we can't pay all four of these guys or all four of these studs on this defensive line, who's the edge person that we want to keep? I feel like Chase is probably going to get that nod because he is the number 2 pick in the draft. He was the franchise. He was supposed to be the face of the franchise. Let's face it. And Montez Sweat wasn't supposed to be the face of the franchise. He came in as a first round pick in a draft, but they had drafted Dwayne Haskins ahead of him. But that's the real decision to me. I don't know if it's necessarily Sweat versus Payton. I think it's more so going to be Sweat versus Young. And one of the things that's going to be the reason for, you've seen Washington now without Chase Young for a while, and you've seen Washington with one stud, supposedly edge guy, Montez Sweat, and that defensive line looks good. So if Chase Young can come back and Chase Young can start showing you flashes of what you drafted him to be, you may have the front office look at this situation and say, well, we both of these guys are really good, but we're going to go with the more star of the two because we can get away with a James Smith-Williams on the other side with Deron Payne and John Allen in the middle. We can get away with a Casey Hill on the other side with, as long as we have that one stud guy. I mean, I know teams would love to have 2 of those guys on our side, but you have to pay those guys. Salary caps exist in the NFL. So it just sometimes it's not feasible to, meet those demands. So I really think out of us, it's going to be Sweat versus Young more so than Sweat versus Deron Payne.
All right. Fellas, last thing. First off, everybody in here, appreciate y'all watching. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit the subscribe button. If you are on the YouTube side, it's definitely appreciated. If you are on Twitter watching right now, migrate over to that YouTube, man. Chop and Dive YouTube and tap it on that side as well. If you want to be a part of the show. If not, cool. All good. Fellas, last thing. Playoffs, man. AJ, I know this ain't what you wanted, but this is what we talk about, man. I think we're a half game out, if I'm not mistaken, of the 49ers 7th seed. And I thought I even brought it up on the Hogs Haven podcast yesterday. God, thank you for allowing me to do the graveyard shift and sounding somewhat competent. But when I had this discussion, I was like, look, they 5-5, but I had to bring up the fact that this sounds good and all, but are we losing the forest in the trees here? Are we kind of like saying screw the off season and the bigger picture and I'm chasing short-term success? Like, because a lot of people after that win against Philly, I don't ever want to take away anybody's excitement. You are excited. I was excited. I was very impressed, and I still am. So do not take this as being the Debbie Downer, but you got to be asking this question. And I know you are probably asking this question, everybody here. Is what we got going on going to pay off in the long haul? And playoff word is no, I'm done. I was about to say the playoff word is right around, like that is right around the corner. That is a realistic possibility for this season, given how they were able to keep up and get themselves back in it after a 1-4 start. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm gonna give y'all the floor. That is a real possibility.
So yeah, I'm gonna focus on something different. Just to touch on what Dre was talking about in regards to Payne and Sweat, man,
hold on. All right,
you could pay both. You could pay both of those guys if you don't have a quarterback that you pay marquee money to.
But you gonna need
playoff, all that other shit y'all trying to talk about playoffs. I'm not talking about that shit, bro. These wins are literally putting this team in the worst position they could be in draft wise. But yeah, Dre, you can go ahead and talk about playoffs.
Well, first off,
playoffs.
Jim Mora, hey, the legend Jim Mora, baby. But no, first off, to touch on AJ's point, Now, AJ, you be killing me. God, you made me lose my goddamn train of thought.
Playoffs.
I ain't expected to pull the Jim Moore out, but no, no playoff. No, so seriously though, no. Playoffs, like Maul mad because you're not complying. Like you being insubordinate right now.
I'm chilling, bro. I'm just chilling, bro.
AJ being insubordinate. He's not following the topic list, man. But no, seriously though, no. I mean, it's a realistic possibility. I mean, literally right now they are sitting in the 8th spot. Like, I mean, you have 7 spots for each conference. You have 7 spots for each conference. So 7 guaranteed spots, and Washington literally sitting alone in 8th right now, like a half game behind the 49ers. And not only that, I mean, the Giants hold the 6th spot, and the Giants, they played them twice. So, you know, that can be decided down the line. But I mean, they have a legitimate chance. It's the NFC, and no one looks good right now. I mean, the Rams look horrible. The Rams, they were expected to be a lot better than they were, but they're a bad team so far. I mean, just so the NFC East is just a jumbled mess right. Well, the NFC is a jumbled mess right now, and we just beat the best team in the conference, and should have beat the second best team in the conference last week in Minnesota. You know, so it's like the playoffs are a legitimate possibility for this team right now because of the conference they play in and because they have 7 spots now. So we do have to talk about this at some point. And I do think right now they have a legitimate chance, especially with the schedule lightening up the way they are. I mean, if they are talking about a playoff team, Texans and Falcons are 2 teams that you have to beat, even though they do play in a conference right now where they can lose one of those games and still be in a damn playoff contention, as much as we don't want to hear it. But to touch on AJ's point, I did want to go back to this. Now, this is I finally found it back because AJ had messed me up. But right now, we're playing with house money as fans. You know, anyone who observes Washington football, we're playing with house money. And what I mean by that is I think it's a foregone conclusion at this point that Dan Snyder is selling the team. And we don't know how quick that timeline is going to be. We don't know how quick this sale is going to be made, but I think a lot of us do assume it's probably going to be somewhere between March and the summer. And if that's the timeline, I mean, it could be sooner. Adam Schefter was on ESPN last night, kind of, you know, pumping up the timeline. But if it's anywhere in that March to summer range, I think we do have, as fans, probably have to set our expectations to that point. You don't want to get our hopes up too high, but we have to assume Ron is coming back for a year. So if he's coming back for a year, it's whatever. Like tanking doesn't matter. You know, even these, you know, maybe a playoff appearance necessarily may not matter. But if you put the 2 in my hand, I'm going to choose the playoff appearance right now because Ron's going to be back more than likely next year. So even if he's back next year, let's face it, he's going to be on a 1-year trial period. I don't think any owner is going to come in saying this is going to be my guy for years. Ron's going to be on a 1-year trial period. That's why anything right now at this point, to me as a fan, really doesn't matter. So I might as well just root for the goddamn wins. Like, why am I rooting for tanking or why am I rooting for losing if the guy's going to be back next year regardless? So that's where I stand on that.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was getting at. I was like, I don't know, like how many people's mind have shifted after that win. I know everybody doesn't process it the same way, right? But some people, like for you, you're saying F it, he's probably gonna be here next year, so might as well root for the playoffs. There's some people who are saying, I don't care if he's here or not. We just beat the Eagles. Fuck it, let's go to the playoffs. Like, I don't care about anything else. Let's just go ahead and make the playoffs. I think we really good type shit. And I think it's sometimes like if you get distracted in that way, you'll mess around in a few weeks from now, or maybe next year, you'll be like, why are we here and why are we struggling? And it's like you realize that we was talking about this last year. You realize that we were talking about some of these issues last year. And you know, I never know how people or where people's heads are at, but this is a game where it's going to be tough to navigate through the gray area because you just did what you did, meaning beat and upset the undefeated Philadelphia Eagles. So, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get there, man. That P word is lingering, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's valuable this year. But, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. fellas, Anthony, I see you in here. He said the fact that we didn't give up the Justin Jefferson catch is beyond me. Hey, look, whatever. But fellas, appreciate y'all joining. The Commanders Morning Show is live tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. I'm gonna try to do a film session, but it'd probably be abbreviated. I've been at work today. Monday night screwed me, so don't really have an opportunity to go through anything there. And the fellas will be back on Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the preview of the Houston Texans game. So yeah, that's it. Next schedule. Y'all be safe. Enjoy your evening. All that good stuff. Peace.